And I would say that there is, in my opinion, there isn't. I wouldn't compromise my faith for those things, right? Um, Having discussions with people to see how we can work together is much better, in my opinion, than to like give up on a topic, right? For instance, the abortion thing came up more frequently than I'm comfortable with, right? Because it is an uncomfortable topic.
Sure.
Instead of talking about abortion necessarily because you have to address it, I like to bring up other things like adoption. Adoption is a great alternative to abortion. And by the way, it is impossible to adopt a child in America. It is like, you've got to
Yeah.
be. You ever watch those reality shows where it's like somebody's like they bake, I don't know, homemade cookies. The other person, I don't know, makes kangaroo fences, and they're making like
Yeah.
$300,000 a year.
Right.
That's the ideal person that you want adopting, apparently, according to the American legal adoption system. And I'm like, man, there are families who can provide for a child. It doesn't, it probably won't be you know, a, a 3,500 square foot home with, acreage. It might be an apartment, but they can provide for a child and they want a child. But there is no one standing up for those parents who want, or those would be parents. They would rather give money to the state to destroy a life than to loosen restrictions to save a life. And I don't think that's good. And that's something that I wouldn't compromise on. I think adoption is way better than abortion. I would love it if more churches and more nonprofits would give that option. Um, I follow the Ron Paul line of that, where it's like, it's not so much that abortion should be legal; it should be unthinkable, right? Um, and I can tell you from, I hate saying this, but from a cultural perspective, like the Mexican American culture, adoption or abortion is like, nah, man, you keep the kiddo. That's your son or your daughter. It's going to be hard, but it's not very common that you would find somebody that would want to abort. You keep the kiddo, you raise them in a big old family. They're going to be loved unconditionally, and we'll figure it out. And those things come up all the time. But in terms of policy, I think there could always be negotiations, right? Because you're constantly negotiating with the other side for policy. Okay, I have a stance, and I'm not going to move from that. But policy, okay, let's talk about policy and how that could be different one way or the other. And I think there's always negotiation there. If you don't think that there's negotiation there, you're not going to make it very far when it comes to public policy, because it's always a trade-off. I think it's like, I forgot who said it, but it's like a trade-off between like evil, which one would lead to less evil, right, kind of thing. And I'm like, okay, you could always negotiate. You won't always get what you want, but you could always negotiate. And I think that's something Christians should keep in mind. It's like, we could always make that negotiation. And for the Christian that's thinking about policy, okay, do you know what the most heinous thing could be to a Christian? Actually asked my father-in-law that, like, what is the most heinous crime that a Christian could commit or anyone could commit? And then he's like, well, heresy, of course, teaching things outside of Scripture. I was like, okay, do you think that should be illegal? And surprisingly, they said no.
Hmm.
Oh
Interesting.
man, okay. Then we have leeway here, right? For
Right. Right.
negotiation. We could definitely talk about these things. So don't compromise your faith, but find a way that you could negotiate with the other side. Because if you do, the result will usually be something better than what you currently have. Usually.